So I've finished grading your put into practice posts on being seen. And I'm glad you've had the experience that you've had with that, watching Brene Brown, especially her TED Talk. Boy, she really kind of rocked my perspective on things in terms of how I evaluate myself and what that means, putting that out there. The Four Agreements has done the same thing for me as well, which we'll get into a little later on as far as class goes. In fact, you know what? Now's not a bad time to start reading the Four Agreements if you haven't already. Pick that up. It's by Don Miguel Ruiz. You'll see it listed with the books that I have on that clip as far as text goes. So not a bad time to start reading that one as well. I posted up a link to a Netflix special with Hannah Gadsby. And Hannah Gadsby is a stand-up comedian, and if you get a chance to take a look, it's worth your time to go through and do so, especially on the heels of talking about the self in interpersonal communication, the self-concept, self-esteem, all those kinds of things. Her stand-up routine gets into something that's pretty excruciating, which is unlikely for a comedian. And in fact, there's something pretty fascinating to watch about how Hannah does this throughout her routine. It's an hour and 9 minutes long. Some of you, you're going to be offended by it probably. If you've decided not to watch R-rated material, that kind of thing, her language and stuff. But and others, the other trigger warning might be if you've been sexually assaulted, it's going to be difficult for you to watch. I know that because I've been sexually assaulted, and I deal with that and work with individuals who have been. But it's worth watching it with what it is that she has to say, and I won't put up a spoiler alert with that at this point. Some of you will have a hard time watching it because she's a lesbian. And that's too bad. Maybe that's a barrier you need to get over to be able to get into the whole concept of what it is that she's talking about. So if you get a chance, take a look. I'm not making an assignment. However, I do want to open up a conversation about it. If you want to join the conversation, you're welcome to, and I'd appreciate that. If you don't want to do that through a discussion where it's posted at, that's fine. You can do that by emailing me personally. And if you don't want to do it, if you want to watch it, not do it, fine. That's fine. That's up to you. The whole point, though, of that put into practice was for you to get into better touch with who you are. I'm not sure that's ever definitive. I'm 56 years old, and I'm still discovering things about myself, and I appreciate that about the way I live. And I don't think we're ever done with that process. To understand that it's time to stop living up to other people's expectations of who we are, and time to maybe cement our own, or maybe to be more fluid with our own expectations as to who we are, to not maybe paint us in such a corner there as things go. So good job with that. Many of you are looking for how I'm expecting you to format things, and you know by now I don't have a specific format. If you want to number it and do it that way, that's fine. It's worked out well for many of you. I've been able to follow your flow of thinking if you didn't. So no big deal there. As you know now, I'm not adhering to any length. I've written in the syllabus in terms of page or in terms of word count, that kind of thing. I don't care. Just so it's long enough to cover the topic and short enough to keep it interesting as things go. We're going to get to a point where pages don't exist anymore. We're writing in a digital environment where we don't have a standard page format. So I'm getting away from that. Maybe you can get away from that too. And I realize you have other classes where you can't do that, so I get it. And lastly, a number of you have asked if you need to go someplace to take the test for this class to have it proctored. And no, you don't, because I'm not a traditional tester. In fact, the put into practices that you've been doing so far make up your first test. So I test a little bit non-traditionally that way with how I assess to see whether or not you're understanding the information and whether or not I'm able to disseminate it and get it out to you. All right? So if you have any comments, any questions that way, you know where to find me. You can post it where this video is or email me directly. I'm looking forward to next week as we get into perception. I can't remember. I think that's where we're going to with that. All right. Hope you have a good weekend. Talk to you later on.